irrelevant. You can't expect people to respect your beliefs when your beliefs are so completely disrespectful. Which brings me to your rights. Y'all scream, oh, liberals, they care so much about everybody's rights. Well, what about me? Ain't I got rights? Oh, honey, bless your heart. Nobody's trying to take your rights. We're just trying to keep you from doing that to other people.
Bingo. I love that. I absolutely love that. And I've said for a long time that I try to respect people and challenge their beliefs. But that's a really good point. That's a good point for justifying sort of this firebrand atheism, this in your face. How can I respect your beliefs when your beliefs are so damn disrespectful? That's brilliant.
Yeah, well, thank you, first of all. And also, yeah, that was always my whole thing with it, is it doesn't go both ways with them. It never does. Like, anytime they say any of that hateful stuff or whatever, and they get called out for it, they start screaming about, freedom of speech and they're being persecuted and all this kind of stuff. But, they don't respect anyone else's beliefs. If it's at all different from their own, then they just respond, like, sometimes literally violently, and it's like, I did the video I did today, for the weekly series I do for the New York Daily News. It was about the whole Colin Kaepernick thing, It's like that. And it was a whole thing with him. It's like, oh, he has no respect. He doesn't respect the country and all this stuff. And the thing is, I do think he could have went about it a different way, but it's just so baldly hypocritical to me to hear these people talk about respect when they have no respect for any belief system, culture, sexual orientation, or anything like that other than their own, and yeah, you don't have a right to restrict the rights of others based off what you believe, which is what they're trying to do. So it's not a one-to-one comparison, like, we're not trying to strip them of any of their rights at all. And it was always like, you can't, I don't care. I don't care at all who believes in God or who doesn't. I don't care if you're a Christian. You know what I mean? Like, you could say all this Christian stuff that you believe is, again, as long as you don't get hateful with it or to start talking, bigot talk, then I don't care. It's fine. But they don't feel the same way. You can just say that you don't believe or whatever, and a lot of them, like, take it personally, and everything's a double standard with them, in my experience anyway.
Yeah, I mean, again, they
don't see it that way.
Right, they don't, because when you leave religion, I would never say I am atheism. You would never say I am secular. I mean, you would say that, but
right.
You would say I'm a secular person, but secularism itself isn't who I am. It's not. It doesn't define Trae Crowder, right? But they do. That's the way group psychology works. You have to a piece of the group replaces a piece of the self. I know you've actually referenced Sigmund Freud before in some of your videos. In 1921, he developed this theory of group psychology, and he talks about that. Why you see a bunch of crazy people with their shirts off at a Denver Broncos game. Well, the reason why that is because they've taken a piece of the group's ego and it's replaced the individual's ego. So the individual wants, desires, needs, embarrassment is not near as important as the overall benefit to the group for you having Broncos painted across your chest and when it's 12 degrees outside. So they say, I am the Broncos. I am a part of the 13th man on the field. This is my role. I have to do this. In that film I did with the Christian, he says in there one time, I'm ripping the belief. I'm going line by line on why I don't believe. He says, I am Christianity. I am that belief. And I'm like, dude, that's the difference. We've separated ourselves from the views we hold. I can say humanism is a worldview I live by, but I would never say I am humanism. If someone is offended by humanism, so what? I don't care. Right. If you think humanism is wrong, I don't give a damn if you think humanism is wrong. I can debate you on it if you want, but I'm not going to be offended. But because they have integrated themselves with their belief, if you talk about their belief, they take it personally, and then they start launching attacks on you. I think that's why they can't separate it.
Yeah, and that's another good example of that double standard. You say I am Christianity, and this is me, this is who I am. So an attack on that's an attack on them personally. Mm-hmm. But yet, by the same token, as you mentioned earlier, they'll look at a gay person, who they are gay. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, that's true for them. Like, that is who they really are and how they were born that way and everything else. But like you said, it's the exact opposite for them in that scenario. It's, you know, you're not gay. You just have, you know, sinful thoughts that you should be suppressing and you're not. You know what I mean? Like, they just find any way to, you know, manipulate emotions and feelings and everything that people have to fit like their own narrative. And it doesn't matter how illogical or hypocritical any of it is, as long as it fits within what they believe beforehand.
Well, that's one of the
twist anything.
That's one of the tenets of group psychology is if people of your own group make a mistake, you make excuses for them and say, "Oh, well, he's human. He just messed up."
Right.
Especially if that's the pastor. Right. You know, if that's the leader of the church, "Oh, well, he's human." But if someone outside your group makes a mistake, well, it's because they're evil. It's because they're not part of this group. It's because they're not in this church. So they can easily just disrespect and talk down to people that are outside their group, and it's such a ridiculous mindset. I try to point that out to Christians as often as I can, and this group mob mentality, unfortunately, atheists, secular people are not immune to it, and we see that with the attacks against the whole Black Lives Matter movement. And I wanted to talk to you about that because your video on it was hilarious. I didn't pull a clip from it, but I wanted to talk to you about that. Why? I kind of want you to give your pitch here that's somewhat similar to what you do in the video, but take us through why you think conservatives, rednecks in general, should be on board with Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, so, you know, I wanted to do something about Black Lives Matter because I do get very upset about a lot of the narratives, you know, in opposition to it from the right and all this stuff. But at the same time, you know, a lot of great points have been made and are being made against other people, like on the front lines of that movement. You know what I mean? And I don't want to speak for anybody on their side. I don't want to speak for any, you know, a black person who's dealing with that kind of thing. So the angle I took, and I mean, I do believe this, and I felt this for a long time when I think about it, is like I grew up super redneck, you know, and my whole life, rednecks have never been big fans of the police. You know what I mean? Like, that's a big part of like redneck culture when you think about it. And the thing is, like, that movement has been boiled down, whether how accurate it is or not, it's been boiled down into this like dichotomy between, you know, on one side you've got the police, the system represented by the police or whatever, and then on the other side, Black Lives Matter and Black America. And all the super conservative, stereotypical rednecks are very pro-cop, obviously, because it's Black Lives Matter on the other side. But my whole life, rednecks have hated cops, you know, like in reality, but also in pop culture. I mean, again, it's a thing. And this is the stuff I touched on in the video. Like, the most popular redneck television show of all time, The Dukes of Hazzard, is literally just about two good old boys running from the law the whole time. You know what I mean? Smokey and the Bandit is kind of the same thing. Like, it's just, if you watch Cops, every episode of Cops I've ever seen takes place in either the ghetto or the trailer park. You know what I mean? Like, rednecks and cops have always been like diametrically opposed, you know? So it seems very hypocritical with me that they would fall on the other side now that this whole debate is going on nationally, except, you know, it does make sense because, like I say in the video, we all know what the reason is. It's because of who is on the opposite side from the cops in this national debate.
Yeah.
Black Lives Matter. You know what I mean? So it's like, you know, it's a shame that that's the route they would go, but I'm also not entirely surprised by it. But it is, you know, I would just think rednecks would be able to sympathize. And then the difference is, and I said this in the video too, like, rednecks have always been not big fans of the law, but like the law just sort of ruins our parties. You know what I mean? Like, we want to blow up a washing machine with some tannerite or whatever, and they come and shut it down, and they, you know, and everybody gets mad about it. They're not, by and large, they're not out shooting unarmed rednecks for one thing, because there aren't very many unarmed rednecks, but also
right.
like there's just, if all these cases were happening with rednecks, with poor white trash redneck people, like they happen with black people all the time that you hear about, I feel like it'd be a different story. But because it's not, then now all of a sudden they're super pro cop or whatever. And the thing is, I want to make it clear, because anybody listening to this may not have seen the video, like I'm not at all advocating any like violence against cops or nothing like that at all. Like that stuff is uncalled for and isn't helpful. But I'm just saying, if you're going to look at that movement and that debate as being that split, between the police, as it were, and Black Lives Matter, it just, based on the history, it doesn't make sense why rednecks would fall on the side of the cops. And that's all I was trying to say.